Ooh, this is fun. Welcome back to Who Wears Your Pants? This is Kirsten Trammell, and I'm here with Sammy, DJ, Shoebox Moses.
Yeah, that was it. That was it. I know you were wondering how to do that.
I was. Okay, now I get to give everyone a little intro about who you are, what you do, what makes you magical. Okay. So Sammy is a world-renowned DJ who has performed on stages like Nike, Google, Cirque du Soleil, Richard Branson's Necker Island, not once, not twice, but maybe 3 or 4 times.
No, twice.
Okay, not once, but twice.
Awesome. Thank you. What's up?
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. I think and maybe a little clarification for some of your folks that might be listening or watching. When you say I'm on the Nike stage, my style of DJing, they bring me in for these amazing conferences. I've etched out this incredible DJ position for myself where I play for these incredible entrepreneurs and these world-changing humans, and we play for these festivals, or I play for these festivals that are like TEDx meets Coachella. And so you have these world-class companies.
Where is this?
Right? So these companies, the Googles, the Nikes, the Mind Valleys, the Cirque du Soleils, they have such huge companies. They have sales meetings. They have all these. But in the way that they need to bond their community and their tribe, they bring in fun talent. So they bring me in to clean up and make sure that their parties go off.
Yeah.
So that's when you say the stage of Nike. Sometimes people are like, how does that work? But if you've ever been to an event, and we can maybe backtrack on this in a bit, but if you've ever been to a corporate event and you're like, oh wow, this is so boring, you want to leave, right? Mm-hmm. And you're not going to remember anything really from that event. Or if you've ever been to an event where everyone's bonded, they're like a tribe when they're done, everyone's having a blast. There was a party that was just next level. Bob jumped into the pool with all his clothes on. Carrie drank the entire punch. It's people are making out in closets, whatever. When people just lose their minds at an incredible party, that's why they bring me in.
It's because of you.
Exactly.
That is
every single party around the world. That's why.
That's amazing. That just shows you the power of music.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Why do you think that happens?
I think that happens because music is the great equalizer. And music, even on a scientific level, if you take the ability to move your body, to change your state instantly, and then to connect with people in a song that you love. If you see 10 people and a song comes on that you all love, and you guys all love that song, there's an instant bond. Mm-hmm. There's an instant bond. And when you can do that one after the other, and then all of a sudden you're all moving and dancing and sweating and having a blast together, it just hits every different part of what makes us human. All the juice, all the love, all the ecstaticness, and then dropping the inhibitions. There's nothing better than when you drop a really good hip hop song and the girl that you've been talking to that's super conservative just drops it like it's hot. Goes from, we call it hip hop's one of our favorites because it takes a normal girl and makes her a hoe in 4 beats. You're like, damn, I did not see that coming.
Yeah. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you do for the Nikes and the Coos. I wonder how many weddings that you have, relationships that you have brought together and you don't even know it.
Oh man, so many. I think that's one thing that is funny because in an environment like this, right? Who wears your pants? I think what's funny is we were talking earlier about how did you stumble into this art form? How did you really learn to hone this craft? And I cut my teeth, learning how to DJ in the wedding sphere. After I learned how to be a DJ, there was only a certain direction to go for a bit, and so I would I would play these weddings and these mitzvahs and these birthdays and like anything under this. I've even played a bunch of celebration of life events, which is really random because at first I was a little gun shy to do that because who wants to play for a funeral? But when I looked at it and what makes an event an incredible event, whether it's 8,000, 10,000, 200 or 50-year wedding, is if you turn an event into an experience. And so I just learned this beautiful art of taking, not just by pushing buttons and playing music, but by really wrapping my soul and my energy and just sending it through the music and connecting with people and getting them to connect with each other. So I think that's why I've been so blessed in playing these bigger events. And some of the clients that I have, they're incredible world-changing companies led by just these iconic moguls of folks that are really pushing the human race forward.
Yeah. And
the cool thing, Kirsten, is that they all have a couple things in common. They love to party. That's like their main thing. Fun and partying is one of the biggest things. And then they love to give back. And so when I started seeing that was the correlation, it made it really easy to know who I'm with. But what was crazy is then it's not just like Sammy's here. I've been with these people for 10, 12, 15 years. So it's like this family. Yeah.
Well, I think that when you have the intention of like, think about partying, you're like celebrating life. And then if you're giving back, you're also celebrating what you have and sharing it with other people.
Absolutely.
There's nothing more beautiful than that. But I remember the first time I met you. You were DJing at like one of the Beacons houses at Jake's house. I don't know what we call it. Yeah, I don't think I'd ever met you before, and you stepped up there, and I was like, "Who is this guy?" Because he is just a ball of energy. Like it just like radiated.
Yeah.
And that was really, really cool. I think you can like feel it coming. We can feel you coming through the music, which is different than some. Like I think sometimes you go to a club and it's just like,
boots and pants and boots and pants, boots and pants. Yeah, that's interesting that you say, and I'm so glad that you did get to share that, because I haven't had you guys at a big show. You guys haven't seen me play in a larger arena, but it's the same thing. And I've taken, sometimes I've done this half a dozen times at least, where I give my music that I play, the same exact music that I play, and I'll give it to somebody else that's playing, at an event with me or whatever, because we do a lot of silent discos and some stuff like that. So there'll be multiple DJs. And then I've done ones where there's a DJ that's going to open for me, and then I'm like, here, take this. I'll give them a thumb drive with all the same music that I have. And they'll play, and they'll, get people moving and dancing, but I'll play the same exact music, maybe in a little bit different order, maybe a different format a little bit. But it's a night and day difference.
Why do you think that is?
Energy, absolutely. Energy and care of like how to read a room and understanding where you need to seed energy and where you can put energy. There's a test that I took a long time ago, and I give it to all of my employees too. It's actually called the Kolbe test, and I've been talking about this a lot today.
Yeah.
And the Kolbe test has it's a cognitive test. There's cognitive tests and there's cognitive tests. A cognitive test is like Myers-Briggs, Strength Finders, things like that. And those tests are tests that you take when you need to remember information and then take that information and apply it, or you need to use rote memory, and that gives you what your strengths are. The Kolbe test is different because it's a cognitive test, and it actually tests your ability to use the most creative part of your mind to solve really cool problems, or to make reality out of really crazy goals, right? So there's four parts of this test, and you're either a quick start, you're a follow-through person, you're an implementer, or you're a fact finder. And I did that wrong, but it's actually fact finding, follow-through, quick start, or implementation. Those are the 4 categories. And so, for example, so a quick start is notoriously common among entrepreneurs, not podcasters, but entrepreneurs. And so we have these big ideas, these big visions, we try to do it, and then all of a sudden they're like, dude, did you even research this? You just started doing it. So entrepreneurs are terrible like that. But what's great about knowing your strength, and I tell you this because I'm a high implementer. I have a 9 was my ranking on quick start, and then I had an 8 on implementation, and then my follow through was a 3 and a 2. 3 to 2. Poor follow through. But what was amazing, Kirsten, is you can build the systems around you, and you can use that knowledge and you can use that information to find people in your team or the people that you hire that are good. Like now the people that I work with, they're incredibly high in follow through and incredibly high with fact finding, which allows us as a company to really get things done. And so when I realized that, when it comes to me laying out music and making people move in a different way, it's because of my implementation part of this, of my mind and the way that I think, is that I know that if I play a certain song, sometimes people don't even hear it, but if I play it and I pump the bass just a touch or twist it up a little bit and jar their minds out of a conversation, they'll be like, oh, I like this song. And then you see that move, and then I can play that. And then if I know that's the song that they like, then I play another one similar to it or in that same genre or by that same artist. And then I work it, and I watch the crowd, and I watch people, like, I call it itching the audience. And I'll move this way, and I'll move the audience, and I'll move the next song. And I can see it as the pockets of people will start moving and moving. And there's a subtle observation that I make when I see all those people moving, and then all of a sudden you'll see, boom, the dance floor is full. These girls are getting it. You're like, Latin music does this all the time. Like you fill up the floor with a little Latin, and then all of a sudden you've got this movement and this energy, and then all of a sudden you can drop in some trap and some hip hop, and then people are really getting down, and then you bring the energy, and you can bring that BPM up, and all of a sudden people are jumping and screaming, and then when you got them at that height, and you're just like, and you see them going crazy, and then you drop the floor out on them and just bring it back down, and they're like, oh. And once you do that, and you take these people from the top to the bottom to the middle, and you bring them up again, and there's that flow that you do with them when you can play that way. And you can do that in a myriad of situations, but the biggest thing that I've been really blessed to learn, and I learned it the hard way a lot of times, I never prepped my music very well, and I never was a good fact finder or a follow through person. So I would just go and just start playing music. And so a lot of DJs that I've played with and worked with and that have taught me and I've learned from, they'll look at the way that I have my music, and it was never organized like, here's hip hop, here's house, here's this. It's taken more of that form now, but it was just categorized by experiences. So like it would say Croatia, then it would say Mexico, then Tulum.
Like these are experiences like that you
had.
Okay.
Then it's like Sardinia and this and that. It's like Mind Valley, A-Fest, digital marketer, Cirque du Soleil, Magic Time, Magic Hour, Sunset Hour here, Sunset Hour here, Sunset Fiji, Sunset, all these things. And they're like, how do you even know what the fuck you're going to play?
Yeah.
And so it just becomes this experience inside my thing. But what one of the DJs said to me one time, and this made me kind of shift and really take the organizational side of it much more serious. He's like, every time you step up to play, and he'd shadowed me on 4 or 5 tours. He goes, every time you step up to play, you are playing so many different things. It's like you're taking an SAT test every time you step up. Because you're so impromptu in the way that you play that it must be so taxing on your mind to play this way.
Yeah. Is it?
Yeah, it was exhausting.
Oh my God. Well, it feels like, so many things to everything you just said, but it feels like you're literally like a puppeteer at a dance floor or at a party, like moving people here and there and that must feel amazing.
Yeah. Oh, totally amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really amazing to see how that works. And luckily, the way that I learned to DJ was at this time where you didn't always have to have vinyl with you. So I got to learn how to DJ in that space where digital was taking over, which allows me to be super versatile and play music from the 20s. Like a lot of times, I'll hit them with something that they wouldn't see coming, like swing or 20s or, or something from the 50s or the 60s, and you'll mix those things in. And it's so great because music at its core, has its roots and stuff in Motown and in old rockabilly, and even just country and rock. And if you can go all over the place, it's incredible because you can paint this canvas for these folks.
Well, and I think if you can blend different styles of music together, it makes people, whether consciously or not, realize like how connected everything is. Even like you start with a blues song and you hit them with a country beat. I don't know if this is how it actually goes down, but it could, right? When you mash stuff up.
Oh, absolutely.
And then all of a sudden you're creating this beautiful music from all of these different time periods and genres, and that's...
Yeah, and the magic of like a good mashup every once in a while will just take people and send them into a frenzy, It's so fun because everyone likes that. I love Tony Robbins. I don't know if you read or watch much Tony Robbins. He has a couple things, and the 6 human needs is something that he talks about a lot. But what people love is certainty. That's the first thing that they really love, is certainty. And the second thing that they really love, do you know what that is?
Well,
what they have to have?
Safety.
Uncertainty.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yep. Certainty and uncertainty. So when it comes to playing music, I know that if they're like, oh my God, I'm going to have a good time, but what's he going to do?
Yeah.
What's he going to do? That's why we like horror movies and suspense movies and these things, because we're like, yeah. Well, maybe not horror, but we like suspense in a way where it's like, oh my gosh, I know I'm safe. I know I'm okay. But what's he going to play? What's he going to do? He's going to twist this up. It's going to be crazy. Yeah. I really love it.
Music is totally a language.
Yeah, it's its own language unto itself. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so why don't you tell us how you got into this? I mean, I know you play the guitar, and when did you start getting into music? How did you know it was what you wanted to do?
Oh, gosh. It's so great. So I'll tell you how I became a DJ, but I want to tell you, before I do that, what I heard for the first time that made my skin like I was like, filled with that energy. The first time I ever had music, truly, like I used to watch shows. I'm from Colorado, so we'd go watch concerts at RedRocks and see shows in these beautiful locations there. And the first time I actually heard a song by Paul Oakenfold, I was in my car.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, he's an iconic electronic dance music composer, and he was one of the grandfathers of DJing back in the day. He did a lot of soundtracks now too, but he was kind of this guy in like 1999, 2000. He had this song with Sarah McLachlan, and do you know who that is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
All those sad animal commercials.
Oh God, yeah. She had a song called Silence, and I heard this song. There's a couple songs on this album, but this song came on over my radio, and I heard bass like that for the first time. And I still remember sitting in my car, and I was like, what is happening? What is that? And I heard this music for the very first time. So that gave me this window in. I was like, that's amazing. I want to do that. And I started my career as a musician, as a guitarist. But fast forward,
were you like in a band? What did you do?
Yeah, I started my career in music with a 12-piece ska band. It's called 12 Cents for Marvin.
Oh
I was
God.
the guitarist.
My brother was in a ska band in high school. He played the sax. It was so much fun.
So much fun, yeah.
Go skank.
Yeah, go skanking. You know what's so funny too is like that taught me how to send energy, because a ska band was all about dancing, all about energy, all about going crazy. And I think one of the most memorable things ever from that experience that I can remember was when I played in Durango at my brother's school, and we played this show in Durango, ska brewing company, and my brother was on the dance floor with all his friends dancing their asses off, and it was the most magical thing I'd ever seen. I was like, oh my God, I'm making my brother dance with his friends. And a guy with the bagpipes showed up and played with us, and it was just insane. But that's when I saw that magic of getting everyone unified and dancing to music. And it was incredible. It was one of the most, eye-opening things for me.
Yeah.
So fast forward, I used to throw parties in Florida for spring break, and this is when I saw the magic of big crowds. And we would throw these parties for like 10 and 20,000 people, and they were just nuts. And I saw the sweltering, like what that looks like, because I'd never seen a festival before, and I would see these kids partying like crazy, and I was like, wow, that's nuts. I wonder what it'd be like to see if a DJ could move an audience like this. And I saw it happen. I was like, holy shit,
yeah,
that's crazy. So I started throwing these parties. I met this girl, and I moved to Texas for her. The relationship imploded. It was a disaster at the end. It was actually a lot of things I learned about guitar. I learned when I moved to Texas for love. Like, I have exes in Texas. So I was like, all right, I fit the stereotype now. I fit it. And I was coming back to Colorado, and I moved into my buddy's house, Devin. And Devin, if you watch this, I love you, dude. Sorry about what I'm about to tell everybody. I moved into his house, and I had no money. I had maybe $50 to my name. I had no idea what I was going to do. And Devin was an entrepreneur too. He had a screen printing machine in his basement, and he's like, you know what we should do? We should make t-shirts, and that'll be our money making scheme for the summer. And I go,
he's a quick starter, huh?
Quick start.
Yeah.
Quick start. Yeah. And I go, what kind of t-shirts are we going to make? He goes, we should make funny t-shirts. And Devin's hysterical. And he pulls out this notebook, and he goes, what we should do each night, we'll think of new t-shirt ideas, and we'll print them on there. And I go, let me see your notebook. And the things in his notebook, it said like t-shirt ideas, drugs. It was like, kiss me, I'm bipolar, so fuck off. Have you hugged your Islamic extremist today? Just stupid, but yet kind of funny t-shirts, which actually
like
probably
at least 10 people would buy that.
Somebody would buy them, right? So we're flailing. Obviously,
Yeah.
we're flailing, coming up with ideas. And my friend Tao, her name is Tao. I love you, Tao. I love you. If you watch this, she came over and she had a gift for us, which was this candle that she said we should light when we come up with ideas. And I go, oh, that's a great idea. So we would light this candle and like smoke copious amounts of pot and think of new ideas for t-shirts. Well, one night we did this and we got hungry because we were probably smoking, and we left.
As one does. And we left the motivation candle, our creative candle, burning in my room. And so we're at a restaurant. We're at the Funky Buddha, actually, in downtown Denver. And this Funky Buddha, it's not there anymore, but it has this entire wall with hundreds of candles on it. And so have you ever had that weird spidey sense where you're just like, something's off? Yeah, like every time I leave my house, I'm like, did I unplug my curling iron?
Totally, right? So I'm looking at this wall, and I'm just thinking to myself, there's this thing in my gut. And it dawns on me that I think we left the candle burning. And I don't think anything of it. And Devin leaves. He leaves early, and me and my friend Brittany, we're having drinks. And my little phone, I had a little razor, just starts rattling, and I flip it open. I'm like, what's up? And it's Devin. And Devin, you can hear him scream, when somebody yells so loud into the phone, and he's panicked. And he goes, there's a couch in my living room window. There's 3 fire alarms. There is fire everywhere. What did we do? And I looked at that wall, and I'm like, we left our candle burning, didn't we? He's like, you need to get home right now. And so I got home, and lo and behold, I had torched his house.
The whole thing?
The house it wasn't leveled to the ground yet, but it was burnt out. It was a smoldering mess. And the only thing that survived from that was my computer with some music, a couple guitars, and my journals. Wow. And at that moment, and I'll get to how I became a DJ with this. At that moment, I was like, oh, God, I need a job. Really, really need a job.
The T-shirts are burnt to a crisp.
There's no future in T-shirts right now.
Oh, my gosh.
No future. So this
is like a rock bottom style moment for you.
This is a rock bottom. And the between the breakup, staying in your friend's basement, no money, now no money. And just completely at my wit's end, I start calling people in Denver, and my one friend Patrick's like, you can take my shift at Alley Cats. I'm like, what is that? And he goes, dude, you get to work at the club. You can meet everybody. He sold me on it, And I didn't care. I didn't care what I was doing. And I got there, and I thought I was going to be a bar back and bring liquor to the bartenders or whatever. I didn't know. But I get there. They hand me a duffel bag. I open the duffel bag, and it's mints, napkins, gum, some really, really gnarly smelling cologne. I'm like, what do I do with this? And they go, well, you're in the bathroom. Go set up. So I go, and you're looking at it. You're looking at yourself in the mirror, and you're putting I'm fascinating and putting all my stuff up there. Like, I'm like, why would I put shaving cream up here? What? I don't even get it. What's in here? There's so many weird things. There's razors. There's mouthwash, all that stuff, which kind of makes sense. But I was like, is somebody actually going to shave in here? I don't get it. So I set up this little situation. It's my first night. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm feeling like a real big pile of shit. I'm working in the bathroom. I'm listening to dudes take dumps in bathrooms, do drugs in the bathroom, and
Really quick, I just have to ask. I always wondered why they have those people there, because that didn't used to be a thing, and then it became a thing, and then I was like, are they doing this to monitor the bathrooms? Are they doing this as a courtesy to people? Did they ever tell you the intention behind it?
Yeah, I don't know the origin story of the bathroom attendant, but I can tell you that it was actually a total eye opener. Yeah. Because after I got over the initial whatever, I knew that I was gonna have to make the best of it. And I mean, I have a huge piece of faith that is deep in me, and I was like, listen, I get it. I need to get through this. I'm leaning on you for this. So whatever you need me to do, I guess I'm here. I'm gonna make the best of it. And so I just start kind of enjoying the process, and I would make $300-400 a night as this attendant at times, which was crazy, and it saved me. I was like, oh my god, like the first night I made like $270.
You like quadrupled your net worth.
200x to my net worth at that point. But what was amazing, Kirsten, is I could hear these DJs and that music that I'd heard that one time in my car.
Yeah,
that made me move. I was like, oh, this is what this is where they're at. And I could step outside of the bathroom and look around the corner, and those DJs were in the booth just sending it. And I was like, I gotta get it from here to there. Yeah. And as a musician before, I did a small little tour with that band, so I was like, entertainment's in me. This is what I want to do. So my whole heart and my whole reason for being is like, I am going to be an entertainer, and that looks like the way to do it. And so I had to figure out how to get from that crapper up onto that DJ booth. And so I started noticing that there's this ritualistic thing that they would do all the time. They would take shots. At 10 o'clock is when they were allowed to take shots, I think, or something at the club. So they would take shots, and they loved to have these girls do it with them. And so I was like, you know what? I should buy them shots. And I know the girls, I'll just take the girls up and do shots, and maybe they'll teach me how to DJ. And so that was my unconscious mind telling me, keeping my dream alive, right? And I later learned through Tony Robbins and some other people, that's called your reticular activating system, is you get your unconscious mind focused and honed in on what that is that's the most important to you, and the thing that's driving your soul. And for me, it was entertainment, it was music. It really was. It was the music. And so I knew I had to get from the bathroom to this space. And so I'd save these shots. And I later realized what I was doing was these things called rituals and gifts. And so the ritual was to get these shots, and I would go gift them to people. And so I do that all the time now. So even in these bigger events, I know that at a certain point, we need to do a ritualistic thing where we all get on the dance floor together and I gift them this song and they all unite on the dance floor as one. So these rituals and these gifts became a really big part of what I do when it comes to like sending it in this way. And so I would save my money, buy these shots, take these chicks with me and we do shots. And then I would sit in the DJ booth and watch what they were doing. And so I was learning.
Meanwhile, no one's tending to the restroom.
No, people are there.
All these drugs are being had.
No, not only that, all the stuff's like my money, my buckets of money. I mean, I didn't even care. I was in the DJ booth. So it was a weekend. And when I'd set up, I was all ready to go. And I can tell like the energy's off in the club. The music's not flowing. And I look out, you know, from my little perch in the shitter. And the DJ is just flailing around and can't play. And so I took my M&M shot, right? I seized the moment. I just ran up there, moved him out of the way, and just started dropping music. And so I started playing. And the first song I ever played was Ponder Replay by Rihanna, this remix. And I remember singing it was like.
Had you ever touched a DJ
equipment
before?
I had played on a little bit because I had been practicing with these DJs late night and they were showing me stuff. And so
Rihanna's dropping.
Rihanna drops, the dance floor starts popping. And I start just sending it. I was like, oh, I love this. I got this. I mixed for about 20 minutes. And the club just like lit up, right? And that was my moment. I remember looking at it and I was like, oh yeah, that's the jam. This is what I do. And I look over at the VIP section and there's these dudes, you know, arms crossed, mouths open, just like glaring at me. And I'm like, oh shit. So I knew I needed like rituals and gifts here. I was like, I better get them some shots. So I run back to the bathroom, get some money to buy some shots for everybody. And at this time now the DJ's back up. He's like, I'm about to lose my damn job. So he's like back on it. He starts playing. I go back to my station and these guys come piling into the bathroom and they corner me. And I'm like, hey, what's up? And they go, why are you in here? You do not belong here. You belong out there. That was insane. Like you need to be playing. And so that was the night that I learned how to DJ, and that was the night that I learned how to become the vibe creator that I've kind of now cultivated myself to be. Yeah.
That is an incredibly emotional story. And that's just I had no idea. This is a beautiful example of, I mean, you kind of did that. You put yourself in the position to become what you wanted to be.
Yeah.
And it's, as you were telling the story, it's kind of like, I don't know, I haven't read the book, but the third door, like the ideology of it, it's like, you know, you kind of took your opportunity, as you said, like Eminem, but like you came in a back way to get what you wanted.
Came in through the back door. Yeah. It was one of those times. And I think what was crazy too, because then
after that you started DJing.
Yeah, after that they were like, you need to meet Kevin Larson. Kevin Larson throws the biggest parties in Denver and we're going to tell him what you just did. Wow. And so
someone should make this a movie.
I know. Oh, for sure. It's such a great movie. We're actually shooting a documentary right now, and this story will definitely make it in there. But what was cool is Kevin Larson threw these iconic events in Denver, and we met, and out of another ritual and gifts kind of situation, he loved tennis, and I'm a huge tennis player.
Oh.
Yeah. So
do you ever play at the court by our house?
I haven't. Oh. Do you play tennis? You look like a tennis player.
I'm not very good, but I picked it up like a year ago, and we don't need to get into it. It's fantastic. It's such a good way when you hit that ball really hard.
Oh yeah, you feel really good. Yeah, and so what I did with Kevin Larson at that time, we had a fun ritual where we'd play tennis, and he made a bet with me after he met me, and we hit it off. He's amazing. He's still a really, really good friend of mine. He was like, I'll tell you what, if you win, I'll pay you to play for my New Year's party. You can DJ. And I was like, really? And he goes, but if you lose, you play for free.
Oh.
And so, I mean, if I look back on it, it probably would have made it a little bit easier, but I think in that instance, it was like a 6-0, 6-2 kind of situation. I was so determined. I was like, yes! And he's like, all right, you got it. I'll pay you. And he paid me $500 to DJ my first big New Year's party. And what was crazy, I had done a little like MC work and all this stuff because I'd been in a band. So I had a couple other things up my sleeve that no one really knew about. Mm-hmm. And so this New Year's party had 2,000 people at it.
Whoa.
And I was terrified. You know, I used my tip money to buy my first little shitty controller. And now I have like a 4x1 setup where there's a bunch of decks and there's a bunch of ways to, you know, you have so much more gear. You can manipulate the music and the sound and do so much more. But at this time, I had like this super small little thing and I could basically mix the songs together and put them back, you know. And I remember there was another DJ, Motto was DJing with me, and he had a whole setup. He had turntables and all this. And I remember he was looking at my stuff, and he was like, yo, what you doing? And I remember at that moment, like, when it comes to who's wearing your pants, I was like, dude, this doesn't define me. This little thing, don't worry about it. I'll show you what I do. Ooh. And so I sent this track. And it was like a track that didn't have any vocals, and I started like doing my singing and flowing on top of this music. And
you're singing?
My singing, yeah, okay. My voice. And he was like, whoa, that's sick. That's going to be incredible. And so I ended up starting that night, and that was the New Year's that we just blew the roof off of that party. And that started my whole like tenure in Denver as an entertainer. Wow. Yeah. And so
how long ago was that?
2011.
Okay, so you've been DJing for a decade now.
Yeah,
wow.
For a decade.
Okay.
And the thing that happened in there, you know, there's one New Year's party. So I did that, and then I was like, well, now I had that itch. And so I started working with a talent agency with a gentleman named Jake Bieber in Denver. And Jake was an incredible MC, taught me how to work the wedding circuit and all that stuff, took me under his wing and really helped me cultivate who I am as an entertainer in the corporate space. And so it was just this beautiful evolution, and that's really how I ended up starting playing corporate. And then one fateful night, I ended up meeting an entrepreneur in Denver who knew a lot about me. He'd seen me play in Denver a ton, and he took me to my first festival called A-Fest, which is curated by Vishen Lakhiani and a company named Mind Valley. Mm-hmm. And A-Fest was this paradigm shift for me. It was, this is where the theory of TEDx meets Coachella really baked in for me. So the very first thing I did is I got invited to go to this A-Fest. And at the time, I was still like eking out a living, learning how to run a business and do these things. But what was crazy is I hadn't made the shift in my head for abundance. I hadn't made the shift on how to like think abundantly. Everything was like, oh my gosh, I need to make a little money here, a little money there. Mm-hmm. And I just was struggling to make ends meet. I had to pawn a guitar to make enough money to pay for gas to get to the airport. Wow. To fly to Maui, which was where this crazy event was. And I was like, I'm going to Maui? Like, they're taking me to Maui? And they're like, yeah, just get there and we'll take care of everything else. And I was like, can I get there?
Yeah.
Oh my God, can I get there? So I pawn a guitar and I get there. And then,
I don't know if you're going to get there, but we'll have to talk about how you made the switch in your mind.
Yeah, the switch in my mind happened after I got to Maui. So, okay. Yeah, and here's what happened. So that night, I ended up wrecking my car. Mm-hmm. It was a blizzard. It was like the last straw I had on my back. I remember Jake, my manager, standing in the snow. I remember just watching him getting pummeled by this blizzard. And he's like, bro, just get to the airport. I swear to God, everything will change once you get out of here. Mm-hmm. And so I get on this plane, and I land in Hawaii. And the first thing that happens, this gentleman, Craig Allen, pulls up in a Jeep. There's a spear gun sticking out of the back. He's basically still got snorkel gear on. And he's like, hey, aloha, bro. I'm Craig. And I was like, what? He goes, you must be Sammy. Come on. We're going to go see Newman. And Newman was the guy that we had to go see to pick up all of the extracurricular activities, which I didn't realize was all the weed and all the stuff. He's the guy that had all of it. And then he was going to take me to Newman's house and then to the Grand Wailea, which is where I was staying, which is the most beautiful hotel. And I get to this place. First, I meet Newman. That's a whole nother story. Incredible story. And then I get to the Grand Wailea. And I remember I was so blown away, and then my heart sank because I was like, I can't pay for this. I have no money. I have whatever I paid. I made $90 on the guitar I just pawned. That's what I've got in my pocket. Yeah. And I remember walking up and being like, hey, I'm Sam Tagget. I'm here to stay for Awesomeness Fest. How much is it to stay here? And I just remember the guy looked at me and he goes, oh, your stuff's all paid for. We just need a credit card for incidentals. And so I remember handing him like a debit card. I was like, I don't really know if that's really going to work. And he goes, and he was super cool. He was like, don't worry about it. If it does, it does. But you're taken care of. And I go, oh, well, how much is it to stay here tonight? And he's like, $450 for your room? And I was like, $450, which was what I was paying in rent at the time.
For a month.
For a month. So I was just like, what the fuck? Yeah. You know, my mind's racing. And then there's like that, they give my key. And they're like, all right, they'll take your stuff up. And I remember just walking into this room and I'm just like, what am I walking into? And they open the door and they usher me into this beautiful ocean view of this room. And I'm like, is this where I stay? And they're like, yeah, this is your spot. And that was when it shifted. And I looked at myself. I remember I threw my bags down and my guitar on the bed, and I was like, you made it. So this is what you've been struggling for this whole time. And all those, all the memories, all the really crappy weddings, all the things that you're like, oh my God, this is what I've come to. And it brought me right back to that bathroom. And I was like, holy smokes. You made it from here to there. Now that week was filled with some of the most intense and deepest connections that I've made to this date. Were made at that event. And it was crazy because these people were making money in the background of their lives. Things were just happening. They had set up businesses online. They had figured out how to make residual income. They had built this marketing machine, and they were just these incredible entrepreneurs. And I knew, and that's when the paradigm shifted for me. I was like, whoa, this is another way to live.
Well, it might be partly that you're talking about the reticular activating system. Like when you're surrounded by all of these people that are like basically building wealth, creating things that they care about, all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is the norm. This is what I see every day. This is like what I'm surrounded by.
Absolutely.
And then you kind of get consumed. Into it.
Here's what's crazy too, right? So I go from this insane, and this is a testament to how fast that if you can learn to see things differently, how quickly your soul, your mind will adapt to seeing these things and making it the norm, so you will always see it. And so I was there the second day. I just walked around like I owned that place, and I felt it in my bones. I was like, this is amazing. And I think what was really lucky for me is I had nothing to lose. Yeah. And what I felt at that time, which was crazy, because I didn't worry about that $90 I had anymore because everything had been taken care of. I was able to be the first full version of myself. Oh my gosh. Because you didn't have that underlining constant stress placed upon you. Yeah. And for anyone listening, if you can figure out a way to set yourself in that spot, like what does it feel like to know that everything's taken care of, or better yet, not that you're just surviving, that you are thriving. Like what does thrive feel like? Yeah. And I stepped into that. I was like, whoa, I don't have to worry about shit. Just be yourself. And I remember the second day, they were like, hey, who are you? You're fantastic. So there you go. Thank you. Takes one to know one, baby. I think what was happening too, and it's great. I'm glad that we're talking about this because I didn't even notice that's what was happening until I looked backwards on it, right? You can't connect the dots except looking back. And so what I remember now, like even when I do my events now, I'm just like, this is what it's like when you have full abundance and you can be your full expressed version of yourself in the best way. And so then I would show up at the event and they're like, Sammy's here. Sammy's going to get us to do this. He's going to totally take us. And one thing, another big paradigm shift that happened that night, and my friend Leanne Kalal really orchestrated this, and my other friend Alexandra Catoni, who I ended up dating and falling in love with for a few years and still one of my best friends. But all these things were happening, and there was a night at the Hard Rock Cafe where I was like starting to feel meek, and I was like, I'm like, do I belong here? And Leanne came to me and she's like, what are you thinking? And I go, well, I love this band. I just would love to go perform with that band. I think I could, because the band was doing okay, but they were like flatlining a bit, and they were kind of looking like, hey, what should we do? We got to get this crowd going. And Leanne's like, oh, well, why don't you go perform with them? And I was like, oh, you want me to go perform with them? And I was like, I can't do that. She goes, now's not the time to play small.
Yeah.
And she walked up on stage and went and talked to the lead singer, and she's like, hey, we have a really amazing vocalist here. Can he perform with you? And the band's like, yeah, would love to. And so I stepped up on stage, and then it snapped back to that time I played with that band. And I was like, boom, what's up, guys? How we doing? We're going to do this. And I go, what do you guys know? Do you guys know any U2? I love U2. And they're like, yeah. And they played. I still haven't found what I'm looking for. And I just took the mic and I riffed and I flowed on top of their beats like I had done with the people in Denver and all these things. All the stuff that I'd worked on all came back, and this crowd went bananas. We actually have it on film. People went crazy.
Pull that up.
I'll pull it up for you. And they went crazy. And one of the guys jumping the highest and going the craziest in this crowd was named Yannick Silver. And Yannick Silver is the founder of the Maverick 1000s. And he came up to me and he was like, what was that? Oh my God. And we were just laughing, and we became instant brothers that night.
And when you weren't even DJing.
I wasn't really even DJing at that time. Okay. Right. And we became instant homies. Yeah. And so I ended up staying connected with him, and that relationship turned into me playing for his events. He had this event called Underground, and then he has this incredible group of entrepreneurs, the Maverick 1000s, and the Mavericks are this prolific group of people that truly go out to change the world for better. And they have a motto. It's their mission statement is make more money, have more fun, give more back. And once I learned that, I was like, that is effing brilliant.
You're like, I'm down.
That is, I mean, it's so funny. I mean, we know not millions, we know thousands of words. I'd never put that together.
Yeah.
Make more money, have more fun, give more back. Are you kidding? And so each time I would meet these new people, there was a new iteration, a new paradigm would shift, a new thing would happen. I was like, people live like this.
Yeah.
This is incredible. They live passion driven, and they live in a way that they make things better around them by having more fun and making more money and doing things differently.
Well, and I think that so often we associate like working hard and being miserable with building success, and it totally doesn't have to be that way. In fact, like as you're describing, it's quite the opposite.
Opposite.
And it seems like, I mean, so you have, just by being yourself and sharing the gifts that you innately have with the world and putting yourself out there, you've met people in such serendipitous ways.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just truly fascinating. And I think that, you know, in the short time that I've known you, I'm like, there's no one that I think deserves that more than anything. And you just have such like a lively presence and loving personality that it's just like so sweet to hear that these things have all happened to you, for you.
Yeah.
And
well, thank you.
Yeah.
And I think too, what I would love to drive home, you asked me earlier, like what's something you'd really love to talk about? I think one of the things that I would really love to make very evident is the fact that those people, once I met them, I started seeing what they were doing. Those people were uber successful, but they all left clues. They all followed a a pretty defined way that they did it. And they all used a lot of the same things that are totally accessible to everybody listening right now, immediately.
I guess, like, what would be an example of that?
They were reading books like The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. They were listening to Tony Robbins. They were doing tons of like, at the time, marketing was just coming on, but now online marketing is something that you can do immediately. You can build your own funnel. You can learn how to sell little things. You don't have to have hundreds of thousands of followers to make a living.
Oh yeah.
Like, I don't have hundreds of thousands of followers on my social feeds, but the audience that I service,
it's like the 1,000 true fans.
1,000 true fans. Yeah. That's all you need. And so following in their footsteps, of which you can do now, you can get a Harvard education in 5 minutes right now. You can go and, like, get yourself jacked into the matrix and learn the things that they'd learned and learn from their mistakes. Like a wise man learns from someone else's mistakes. You can go and circumnavigate all that stuff, take some time and invest in yourself, and you can get to where they're at, but on the way too. And on the way to what they're doing by making millions, if somebody makes an extra $1,000 a month learning from some of these people, that is the difference between a marriage in some cases.
Yeah.
I think 90% of all marriages end because of $500.
Oh, wow.
$500 is enough to break marriages.
Well, I mean, a lot of people are like, I think it's roughly $500 away from, having nothing in their bank account, right?
Totally. And even, and I'll be totally honest, as an entrepreneur, as I've learned to do that, there's been numerous times where I've had that since this time, like this is always an evergreen process. Yeah. I'm learning how to run multiple businesses, and now I have a nonprofit with all the things, and I'm just oh my God, it's just, you learn so much, but I've learned from the best, and I've watched them mess up, and I've made all the mistakes that I could have as well to get to doing what I'm at. But I just want to make sure and, like, really reiterate that the not just the notion, but the fact that you can go and do these things by following the folks that you love. They've all left clues, and now with even podcasting, the amount of information you can get. And you don't even have to listen to it in real time. You can speed it up at 1.5 times and just mainline this shit.
Well, and that's the thing. I think if you really like somebody, you can find out so much about them. I mean, terrifying. It is. Yeah, it could be terrifying. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's, like, the idea that, like, if you're only making a mistake if it's never been made before, right? But you have the opportunity to stop yourself from making the mistakes that all these people are, like, out there sharing all of this information, like, don't do what I did, do this, or whatever. Yeah. Okay, I feel like we have to at least for a moment talk about the origin of your DJ name, because I think that this will only amplify your story that you've shared so far.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think what's great too, so I just mentioned Yannick, and Yannick was really pivotal in how I found out who I was and the origin story. So Shoebox Moses is the performance name that's been given to me over the last 6 years. And that happened after I wanted to find out where I was from. A lot of times we're just like, what's my origin? Where am I from? And I didn't know that because I'm adopted from the Philippines. And I set it upon myself after meeting Yannick and these folks. I was like, you know what? There's such a bigger world out there, and I feel like I can make a big impact. And I've always had a really beautiful heart for giving. And my parents, my mom taught special ed for 39 years. My dad was my English teacher. Like, I had a blessed, beautiful upbringing. So I always felt compelled to go back and find, something about the Philippines. But it wasn't until I met Yannick and a bunch of these folks where I was like, you know what? I can go back and make a difference. I just need to go find out where I'm from and find out what they need. And in this research, I started to, like, dig deeper into, like, the plight of the orphan in the Philippines. And there's 1.8 million orphans in the Philippines right now. And that's, it's staggering. Yeah. I believe it's like 1/10 of their population in Manila.
Wow.
It's insane how many orphans are down there. So what's crazy is that I knew this, and so I was like, I should go back to the Philippines and find my roots. And so I told my mom I wanted to do this, and a couple beautiful things happened. So I ended up partnering with this incredible company that was going to take water filters down to the victims of Typhoon Haiyan. And on the back end of that, we were going to go and look for my orphanage and possibly my mom, my biological mom, and my biological dad. And there's 2 police officers that are also involved in this story. But in this journey, as I'm about to head out, and we raised enough money to buy 100 water filters. We're super excited, and we're on our way to the Philippines for the very first time that I've ever been. And I was so excited. And I remember I was on the phone with my parents, and I was like, we might find my biological mom. This is going to be heavy. And I remember my mom, and it was kind of quiet on the phone, and she's like, if you do that, you need to know, and you should verify this and make sure that this is exactly what it is. But we think, and we're almost positive, that you were abandoned, and you were abandoned and left in a shoebox in a dumpster. And so that was the news given to me as I was headed out to the Philippines for the very first time ever. And so my emotions were all over the place. You know, there was guilt, there was shame around how I'd been living my life. I felt a myriad. And then I also felt deep, deep, deep gratitude for how lucky I've been. But what was crazy was I moved through those emotions. I get on the plane, and all of a sudden, 18 hours later, we're in the Philippines, and I'm face to face with the reality that I came from this amazing place, and I saw where I could have, not made it. Yeah. And so I'm in there, and I'm like, hi, I'm Samuel Tagget, and I believe I was one of the babies that was left, and they're like, oh yeah, you're Shoebox baby. And so
is that a common thing, or that like,
much more common than you'd think? Yeah. Wow. That's where the origin story came from, and the name then came from me finding this out and then bringing this news back home. And so I get back home, and I was at an event with the Mavericks, and I told them what I had just found out, and they were so supportive. And they go, well, what do you want to do with this information? And then I told them I want to change what's happening over there. I think that we can really set those kids free if I can teach them something or give them something that will totally set them free. And they're like Moses. And I was like, yeah, let's go set them free. Oh. And I go, sure, like Moses. And then they looked at me, and they're like, well, a couple of them actually at the same time, they're like, you've always been our little shoebox Moses. Oh. And they just kind of sauntered off, and I sat with that for a few minutes. And if you've ever had a time when somebody bestows a gift on you, and this name, like, make no mistake, was a total gift, it just settled in, and I was like, that is the most ridiculous name I've ever heard in my entire damn life. I guess we'll just run with it. And so I came back home, and I kind of started sharing it with people, and Jake Bieber, my manager, was adamant. He's like, Shoebox Moses, you are Shoebox Moses. Lead us to the promised land. He always says that. Lead us to the promised land, Moses. And he was real pivotal in making that a reality for me. He's like, start doing it. Let's promote it. Let's do it. And so what was great was I started using that name, and I was terrified to use it. I was like, this is the dumbest name. And people loved it. People loved the story. Yeah. People loved where I was going with it. And then kids started showing up.
I was going to say, this must be, I mean, you said that you got on the airplane with shame and guilt about how you were living, but like, this is so incredibly inspiring for people to hear. Yeah. Especially kids that maybe come from the Philippines or have been adopted, or parents that are looking to adopt, things like that.
Well, and not even just kids that are adopted or not. Like, kids right now are going through a real tough time. Yeah. They've been isolated for a long time. It's coming back around, but it's been a hard year for kids being separated. And like, one of the things that I do a lot of teaching, I teach some kids how to DJ. I do a lot of guitar lessons. I have a lot of kids in and around my sphere that I just adore. I love kids. And I have seen them really open up to me once they hear the story. They're like, wow, how did you get through this? This is amazing. How do I get through this? How do I get through the things? And so it's become a much bigger mission to me than just this name, which is beautiful. And now I have a couple different companies under my belt. One of them is a podcast production company. I've got a talent agency. And we started that, and I realized why I was doing it was to make sure that I could provide, one, an example of what it looks like to really own and wear your own pants, like wear your pants, and then create these cool creative outlets through media that I could teach to the kids behind me, and specifically to the kids in the Philippines that are not going to get adopted, which is going to be 99% of them. And so what we're working right now is we're building these really robust classrooms out of containers that are going to be these high-tech media classrooms, hopefully. And we just started really getting the process dialed in. We finally found this. We've sourced the containers. We're building a documentary around it, which is super beautiful. And then we're going to build these incredible playgrounds for the kids that allow them to really flex their connective and their communication skills and to do some really cool things with this mission. And God willing, with my friends that all have VA staffing companies in the Philippines, we're going to start really working to partner with them so that these kids coming out of this situation can get these really cool creative media style jobs and get them placed if that's what they want to do. So that's what we're going to do, is provide these creative platforms and jobs for kids that may want to pursue that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I was thinking about this just now while you were describing that, and how kids right now are struggling, even just anybody, right?
Anybody.
Is the idea that like you're not like the situation, like the hard parts of your life and anybody's life are a better bridge to people than pretending to be perfect. And so I think that and I've been learning that there's so much beauty in being able to share things that have happened because it helps connect people.
Right.
So, and you are doing that above and beyond. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for letting me tell the story. It might have been super long-winded, but that's the story. It's the story. That's what happened.
I'm not sure where we are on time, but unless you have anything else that you would like to add.
I think that's the main thing. And my story is beautiful and I love sharing it. I really do. And I know that there's a huge future in what we're doing to really make the initiative. But I think more importantly is to know that everything that I've learned from media to performance to everything, a lot of it, 90% of it was learned through the ability to just keep what I loved in the forefront of my experience and to really follow that. And to really push myself to always see the opportunities in those places and to follow role models that did it and to learn from them and not try to reinvent the wheel. And that it's easier now than it ever has been. And people forget that as they get stuck on their screens watching TikTok and getting stuck in the social media. If you can take half that time that you use letting the world numb you out and take the other time and learn. You can just learn and follow the people that you love, follow the influencers that they're making it, follow what they're doing. If you wanna really change your life, you can do it right now. Right after now. You can wear your own pants.
Yeah. Okay. So that leads me to my final question.
Oh yeah.
DJ Sammy. I'm like DJ Sammy, DJ Shoebox Moses.
Yes, ma'am.
Who wears your pants?
Ooh. I wear my pants.
I already knew that.
I wear my pants 1,000%. Sometimes they're really tight, but sometimes they're sometimes it's just a wetsuit.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely wear my own pants.
Okay. Well, where can everybody find you, especially if they want to get involved with your nonprofit or hire you for an amazing event?
Yeah.
All of those things. Follow you along. Join your Instagram lives, whatever.
It's easy. It's shoeboxmoses.com. And that leads to the nonprofit. The nonprofit is called the Foundlings, and that's what they call. That's what a baby is called in the Philippines when they find one as a foundling. And so you can find the information about what we're doing and how that project's coming at the Foundlings, and then shoeboxmoses.com on my tour schedule, all my music and what I'm up to is right there. And that connects you to Instagram, Facebook, all the good stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like I could talk to you forever.
I know. Well, we do. Like, this was just an extension of our conversation in the car anyways, and the thing that we were talking about yesterday and at dinner. So, yeah.
Yeah. basically.
Totally. I love you. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day, morning, night, whatever it may be.
Turn the bass up.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Who Wears Your Pants. Please do me a favor and hit subscribe. Leave me a review or a comment so that I can turn this disaster of a show into something great. I need you. No, seriously, I do. And if you're feeling really invigorated, check out my corner of the interwebs at kirstentrammell.com, or let's get really social on the gram at Kirsten__Trammell, because as a ginger, I need all the friends I can get. Peace and love, my homies. I will see you next time.